So not only did I buy a bottle of Versace Eros Najim from the Dubai airport, I also bought a bottle of Ralph Lauren's latest Polo Oud, although it came out last year. But I've been wanting to find it somewhere to get my nose on it and didn't want to do a blind buy. I smelled it at the airport there at the Dubai airport, loved it, and I ended up buying this bottle as well. I've been wearing it and testing it out, and I'm going to let you know all about Ralph Lauren's Polo Oud. It's really good, by the way. Compare it to Polo Cologne Intense that came out in 2021. Compare it to the original Polo, this one right here. Also, compare it to another Oud that was out of almost 10 years ago, which is now discontinued, Supreme Oud. So if you're curious to learn about these fragrances, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Sebastian. I'm talking about Ralph Lauren's Polo Oud. Really wonderful offering from this house. And also, it's now selling for $65 on the Fragrancenet website, which I have linked in the info box. So I think it's totally worth it because I paid around $130 for this at the Dubai airport, converted obviously from the UAE currency. Totally worth it for $65. This is a 125 ml bottle. It's the only size it comes in. And again, I think if you're a guy that wears mostly designer fragrances and you want to dabble in oud, you want to experience oud with a little bit of that DNA of the original Polo. I'm saying a little bit. It doesn't have a lot of it, just a little bit. I think this is totally going to be worth it. So I can't find a perfumer for this, but the original is created by Carlos Benaim. The original that came out in 78. The Polo Cologne Intense that came out in 21. Completely different, brand spanking new creation. Just only the name is the real thing. It doesn't smell like the original. It's created by, once again, with Carlos Benaim and also Pascal Goran, who worked together at IFF. But Polo Oud, whoever the perfumer is, I think they did a great job with it. So I would call this a woody fragrance, woody spicy ambery fragrance. Not only you have the woody experience here, even though it's oud, it's a very Western oud. So to me, it's more like a wood rather than an actual Middle Eastern oud. But also you've got a lot of amber in the dry down and major spiciness here as well. So for notes, what we have here is oud wood oil, incense resinoid, rose absolute heart, cinnamon oil, orange flower absolute, pink pepper, Clary sage absolute, Guaiac wood oil, patchouli oil, and vetiver oil. So it's mostly very woody. There is a rose note in here and also the orange flower or orange blossom note in here. I think since this is dominating with all the woods and the spices, for me, those floral notes do somewhat take a bit of a backseat. It's the blending that they've done here that creates this wood floral combo. But again, the woods notes and the spices is competing with the flowers, and of course those notes are winning out. So for me, the floral notes in this gives it a bit of a balance. Kind of balances out the fragrance. Otherwise, it would lean completely one direction, completely woody and spicy. But it just balances out the fragrance and creates a bit of a rose oud combo thing happening. But again, for me, for my nose, for my experience, it's more about the woods and spices and the ambery effect in the dry down in comparison to the floral notes of the rose and the orange flower. You'll notice them, but it's blended in a way that it doesn't stand out. Again, as I said, the woods and spices is winning out. But when you first spray this down, you do have some freshness up top, freshness with some spices, freshness with whatever amount of orange flower you get. The rose kind of comes in as well. Again, not overwhelming, not dominating, because for me, it's about the woods and spices, and again, the amber and the dry down. But they're there. They help along the fragrance. They take it from one stage to the next stage. And again, you experience a really wonderful creation, very modern, and also a bit classic for me. I feel like traces of the original, or the idea of the original, are here in Polo Oud. And that's what makes it really great for me, because I like that about it. I was a big fan of the original. My dad wore it. He had a splash bottle. Multiple times he had this fragrance, and I would steal splashes from him. I would go to the dresser, take the bottle, and just dabble it on me. And at that time, I was really experiencing what was once this very green, kind of earthy, almost like a pine forest with leather tobacco combo thing. So you get traces of it here in the Polo Oud when you're wearing it. But for me, it's more about the oudy woodiness, some slight smokiness, lots of spices, and of course, whatever ambery effect it creates in the dry down with all the notes combined together. I think they did a great job, and now that it's selling at the discounter, I think it's totally great. But what happened with this when I was testing out this fragrance and wearing it, one time I got a compliment, and it was a very interesting compliment. I actually was at the studio very early, and I was really hungry. I went to have breakfast somewhere nearby. I ordered breakfast. It was like a egg dish, but it comes with toast and it comes with jam. And I asked the waitress if there was a different kind of jam because I didn't care for the jam. So I noticed that she was kind of sniffing me out. She went and exchanged the jam. I wanted a different kind of jam and came back. And she put the jam down kind of very slowly because I think she was trying to smell what I was wearing. And she almost very shyly said, "I really like what fragrance you're wearing. It smells really great." She didn't know anything because it's a place I frequent. Some of the other associates there know that I work in perfumes. They always compliment my fragrances. This woman didn't know, so we got to start talking. And all of a sudden she said, "It smells like my sister's perfume." I'm like, what? This is a male-targeted release. Although I think it could be unisex. But I believe this Polo fragrance series is for men. It's interesting that she said it's something that smells like something her sister would wear. I think that's the reason why she liked it. Maybe off of me, she was smelling the rose more. But when I'm smelling it, it's not very rosy. So maybe the rose is kind of amplifying it off of me, and I'm not as sensitive to the rose note on me, and it is on her. But to me, I don't think that would be it. For me, it's a lot of spices with woods, and the fact that it garnered me that one compliment was a really great experience because I don't wear fragrances for compliments. I recently received some kind of a compliment that mentioned that apparently I'm desperate for compliments. I'm not at all desperate for compliments. It's always nice to receive compliments, especially from fragrances that I'm enjoying wearing. Remember, I said I smelled this, sampled at the Dubai airport. I enjoyed what I smelled. If I didn't enjoy the fragrance, I wouldn't wear it. Especially for a fragrance I don't like, I wouldn't expect a compliment from it. So the fact that it's a fragrance I enjoy and also garnered me a compliment, I think it's a winner. Somebody smelled a fragrance that I'm enjoying, and also they enjoyed the smell of, and it actually took them back. It reminded them of something else that they smelled. They had a scent memory, which is a great thing. But again, as I said, this is a great release. It's a great designer take on oud. It's not very Middle Eastern. I guess it might have some slight funk if you're not used to wearing any oudy fragrances. If you're into the idea of oud fragrances like oud wood, maybe Montal's black oud, but that's kind of going more towards the Middle Eastern line. This is not that. And again, it's also not that rosy for me. But if you're familiar with things like that, I think you will enjoy it. And the fact that it's currently selling for $65, I think that's a great price. It would make a great present. It's different in that it smells different than the original Polo, but somewhat reminding you of it as well. At the same time, you're experiencing the oud, wood, spices, and amber. I think it would make a great present for yourself or somebody you know that might enjoy the whole, Polo experience. It's Polo Oud. They did a great job with it. It's not uber intense beast mode, but it has great lingering power, and I'm in love with it. For a designer fragrance, I think it's top notch, and I wish I got my nose on it much earlier than now. But I'm glad I got my nose on it either way, and also found out it's selling currently for $65. So that is Ralph Lauren's Polo Oud. Now to compare Ralph Lauren's Polo Oud to Supreme Oud, are you guys familiar with Supreme Oud? I think I might have a review of this on the channel. The year that I launched this channel, previously I had another channel, but the year that I launched this channel is the year this fragrance came out. So I believe I have a video on this channel of a review of this. So it's been a while. It's been almost 10 years when I relaunched the channel here in 2015. So this is the year this came out. This is definitely created by Carlos Benaim, who created the original Polo from Ralph Lauren. So he's the same perfumer. Seems like he's done a lot of fragrances or flankers for Polo as well. But the Supreme Oud has notes of oud, cinnamon, pink pepper, Guaiac wood, and vetiver. To me, they don't smell alike, but somewhat they do. I think the oud that they're using here is kind of similar. But for me, with Supreme Oud, I don't get the light traces of anything smelling like the original Polo that I get with Polo Oud. Does that make sense? For me, Supreme Oud is more like a Western designer take on a spicy, woody amber fragrance without traces of Polo. But with me, with Polo Oud, I'm getting very minute traces of the original Polo. So there's a bit of that greenness kind of thing happening in there. But let's quickly smell the Supreme Oud and compare it to the Polo Oud, the more recent launch. Let me know if you guys have compared it. Let me know if you've gotten your nose on Supreme Oud. Supreme Oud to me is a bit more oudy, but also a bit more like Tom Ford's Oud Wood, whereas Polo Oud doesn't remind me of Tom Ford's Oud Wood, but the idea might be similar, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys? This Polo Oud is great. It's vibrant, it's intense, but not like beast mode, like a niche perfume would be. I think it's more intense for a designer fragrance. It's eau de parfum concentration, by the way, so it's not anything overwhelming. Designers give us not very beast mode fragrances, at least I don't consider them, especially since my experience with a lot of niche tends to be a lot more intense and concentrated than designer fragrances. But Supreme Oud is very spicy, very woody, and it has more of a kind of like an oud wood take, stripped away from the cardamom, but cinnamon, warm spices added. For me, cardamom that's featured in oud wood is very fresh, spicy. Whereas here with Supreme Oud, it's more warm spicy because there's no cardamom, there's the cinnamon note in it. But sadly, it's discontinued. Sadly, this collection, which had a leather and I believe also a cashmere, those all three got discontinued. I think I have the leather, I don't have the cashmere. I can't remember what I had, but I have a little bit of it in here. So that's Supreme Oud. And I feel like they smell similar and then they don't compared to Polo Oud. But what about Polo Cologne Intense? So Polo Cologne Intense came out in 2021. For me, it's completely different than the original Polo. And it's also very fresh. It's a fresh fragrance in comparison to, although there's freshness here with the original Polo, but I feel like Cologne Intense is a lot more fresh compared to Polo, the original. The original Polo does have leather. This does, the Polo Cologne Intense does not have leather. And also I get a major pulpy, juicy, citrusy effect with this one. And if you wear it, you'll experience the pulpy, like almost like you're slicing into aloe vera and that kind of, or cucumbers. There's that kind of pulpy effect in there. That's how it wears on me. But this is considered an aromatic fougere, but very modern aromatic fougere compared to something from the 80s. Although the original Polo is considered a chypre, which came out in 1978. Once again, it was created by Carlos Benaim, the original perfumer of Polo, along with the perfumer Pascal Garin. It has notes of clary sage, grapefruit, ambroxan, patchouli, mint, and violet leaves. And I feel like it's the violet leaves that gives you this kind of succulent, kind of pulpy effect. I think it's pretty nice. I don't think it's anything groundbreaking, but also it wears really perfectly in the heat. I think it's a great hot weather fragrance. And the grapefruit and the clary sage, mint, and also this violet leaves note creates this very pulpy, aromatic, juicy, citrusy effect. It's a pleasant fragrance. It's a slight bit metallic on me as well. I feel like the notes combined together is creating a bit of a metallic effect, but I think these kind of fragrances smell great in the summertime. This is currently selling for around $45 online, so you can get a great deal on it if you want something a bit more fresh rather than the deepness of the oud and the ambery touches of the Polo Oud. And last but not least, I want to talk a little bit about the original Polo. The original Polo came out in '78. It's gone through multiple reformulations. I've read reviews and people complaining that it doesn't smell anything like it. For me, what I like about this one, there's a slight reminder of the original when you first spray it. That's what I like about it. The dry down, sadly, the leather has become very synthetic, and there's this weird funk in there that I don't care for. But on initial spray, it totally takes me back, and that's what I love about this one. It's there. I'm saying it's there, but it's like a condensed version of it, a lighter version of it, but it reminds me of it, and that's what I like about it. It takes me back to like 1980. This came out in 78. Like 1980 is when my dad was wearing. He was probably wearing it before, but I remember around 1980 when I was first, stealing, splashes of that. But it's a Carlos Benaim creation. It's a woody sheeper fragrance. It's currently selling on Fragrancenet for around $50. It's pine, leather, oak moss, tobacco, patchouli, chamomile, black pepper, vetiver, and sage. And again, there's that reminder. I love that about it, but the dry down I don't care for. Sadly, the reformulations are not the best. But thankfully, we still have this fragrance after how many years? It's a masterpiece, I think. It's one of the best men's fragrances ever created. Does Polo Oud smell like the original Polo? No, I don't think it smells like it, but as I said, Polo Oud does give me some hints of the original Polo, but I think that's just the way it's created to remind you a little bit of it, whereas it's a complete modern recreation. And again, I wish I knew who the perfumer of Polo Oud is, but both of them are great to me, except I really love wearing Polo Oud from start to finish, but sadly with the original Polo, I don't care for the dry down as much. I think in the reformulation, they've really butchered the dry down, because since it has leather and they probably used animalic leather notes in the past and it's no longer allowed, you're definitely going to notice the dry down with the fact that it's probably synthetic. And they tried to recreate the funk that was there and it's not there anymore. But either way, both are, I think, great creations. This one is currently selling, Polo Oud. I suggest you get it because it's definitely a great price. I don't know how long or how much the discounted price will be. Last time I did a video on a discounted fragrance, it completely sold out, but I think it was not much stock out there. There's probably a lot of stock of Polo Oud out there, so maybe this will last, but for $65, I think it's totally worth it. I think it's going to make a great gift for someone that likes the idea of Polo but wants something more modern with Oud. Definitely worth it. This Polo Oud, I think. Please check it out and let me know. Come back here and let me know what your thoughts are. Last but not least, I do want to touch on this fragrance. Again, I don't know who created this. I don't know if it's Carlos Benaim. But this is Polo Crest. Are you guys familiar with this one? This is from a vintage fragrance find. I think it's one of the most amazing fragrances, guys. It's so great. It came out in the early 90s. If you can get your hands on Polo Crest, the vintage bottle, because it's not made anymore. I think it was not around too long. I highly recommend it. It smells super, super fantastic. It's amazing. It takes me back to like somewhat of the original Polo, but a bit more of a fougere style. Either way, Polo Crest is super fantastic. Try and find it, but don't pay too much money for it because you never know if it's going to be great. But if you can get your hands on it, I think it's worth it. It's so good. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video on Ralph Lauren's Polo Oud. Get yourself a bottle and come back and let me know your thoughts on it. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.